Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello and a good Wednesday, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. You can text in if you like. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 447 KSGF Wednesday, which means it's lunch bunch day for us at Retro Metro. But wait, Retro Metro is only open for nice dinner. Yes, that is correct. Our lunch bunches are private events, so it is now the exclusive way that you can have lunch at Retro Metro with us on Wednesdays. Go to ksgf.com and get yourself signed up for a private lunch with Sarah and me. And if you win, then you get to bring up to 5 people of your choosing. They can be coworkers, they can be family, they can be friends, they can be whomever it is you'd like to bring along and join us for lunch, a private lunch at Retro Metro. One of the best places to have dinner in the 417. There's new polling out showing that things are going in the right direction for old Donald Trump and continuing to go in the wrong direction for Kamala Harris. Right now, here's how the two campaigns are functioning. The Trump campaign is just holding steady, doing what they've been doing. And that is getting out there, doing the rallies, doing some interviews that are more of a casual nature, which serves him well, and deciding, you know what, I'm going to quit sitting down with these hostile interviewers, the 60 Minutes and the others, because it really doesn't do anything. And just hold steady on this. Hold steady on this path. And as the Trump campaign holds steady on that path, the numbers continue to improve. We'll go over these Rust Belt numbers showing that a number of these blue states are coming back into play, essentially where things were whenever the Democrats began the movement to overturn the Biden election and purchase the nomination for Kamala Harris. That's where things are beginning to cycle back to. Meanwhile, the Harris campaign is doing what the Kamala Harris is known for, and that is just being rudderless, being reactionary, instead of evaluating the landscape, establishing the best way to tackle what is to come in the days ahead, marking that course and holding steady in order to get where it is they need to go. It's just reaction. And we've gone from this introduction of Kamala Harris and all of the excitement and getting the crowd all riled up, and then expecting that to carry her through the election. And in those first couple of weeks after the billionaire donors bought the nomination for her, and the media went from Kamala Harris needs to be taken off the ticket because she is a drag on Biden to this is the greatest person ever to run for the presidency. Thank goodness we're all going to be saved. And those, the poll numbers began to go up a bit. Now, she didn't get any convention bounce. But Republicans began to get a little bit nervous. And I noted, listen, you can only get so far off of hyping people up over just, hyping people up. I equated it to there's some big concert you're going to. You love the artist. You know what the substance is you're going to get. You want to get more of that substance. But right beforehand, they come out and you got the warm-up act, and then, right before the music really starts and everyone knows, okay, it's coming, and everyone's really excited. That adrenaline gets rushing because they're going to come out on stage, and that moment is finally here. And then, it just keeps going and going, and at some point you're like, okay, let's get to it here. And eventually the crowd will turn against you if that band doesn't come out on stage. Well, Kamala Harris's entire launch and what they hoped would carry her through the election was that hype before the substance began. because there is no substance is the problem that they're having. And when the poll numbers begin to reflect that the audience that was all amped up because, all right, here we go, we're going to see this thing launch, and they're like, wait, where is it? Where's the show? Where's the main act? What's going on here? They thought, crap, we got to do something. We have to do something, and this is where we see her start doing all these interviews. I said after the debate, the day after the debate, I believed that her campaign was going to make a mistake. And that was because she did well and was received well by memorizing the answers, sticking with it. That was going to give that campaign confidence to think, oh, now we can, the combination of the waning excitement and what they felt was a really great debate performance was going to give them a false sense of confidence that we can start getting her out there. The night of the election, one of her campaign people had, tweeted out or whatever social media platform it was, we're ready for the second debate. And many people, particularly Trump supporters, were dismissing that as, well, they're trying to act like they think she did a really good job. No, I think that they felt that, I think they were feeling real confident. And I believe they were going to fall into this trap that they've fallen into. So the combination of this waning, the excitement just sort of dissipating, and the false sense of confidence after that debate that, hey, maybe she can do this thing. Let's start having her sit down and talk to people, has resulted in them booking all these different interviews, and it is not going well. The CBS interview, which, by the way, it has turned out they edited in the actual airing of the interview some of the responses to make her sound less like an idiot. Got details on that coming up. Now she's doing all these friendly interviews, going on The View, going on with Stephen Colbert, going on with Howard Stern, and she's screwing that up. The big takeaway from all of that so far has been that she wouldn't do a single thing differently than Joe Biden has done. Wrong answer, sweetheart. I mean, these questions, when she screws them up, I think a lot of people say, why would they ask her? I mean, aren't they trying to help her? They are trying to help her. That's why they're asking these questions, because they recognize that Americans are unhappy with the direction things are going, and they worry that they understand that there needs to be a separation. Kamala Harris needs to define herself as being different than Joe Biden. So they're giving her that opportunity. They are offering that up by giving her these questions, setting it up, putting the ball up on the tee stand for her to take a swing and hit it. And so they're like, hey, what would you do differently? The problem is she's whiffing. She's like, nothing. I can't think of anything. Everything's going just perfectly fine. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. And then Joe Biden has once again thrown her under the bus. Got audio of him yesterday, the day after she's putting a target on DeSantis, trying to paint him as selfish and doing this horrible job in Florida. Joe Biden there is saying, DeSantis is doing fantastic. In fact, he's got my personal cell number. Doesn't really need to talk to anybody. He's got this thing licked. Don't worry. That guy is doing absolutely fantastic. Oh, boy. What a week for Kamala. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 81. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 85.
Hey, don't forget KSGF.com, Dogwood Canyon, sponsoring our Fall Festival on the Ozarks page. A lot of things. This is one of the great benefits of this time of year. There are little fall festivals everywhere. Why is it in the? I guess just because of the weather. I mean, you don't really have spring
Yeah, it's
festivals.
just nice.
There are events that take place, but fall, it's like that's when we're going to do our festivals. Which it's great that there are. I love autumn's my favorite season, and having weekend after weekend after weekend opportunities to spend time outside and oftentimes for the first time, it's weird that you can live in an area for years and years and years, decades, your whole life, and then here's a small town 20 miles away you've never even been to. And oftentimes these festivals are opportunities to do that. So listings of many of those festivals at ksgf.com under the fall festivals in the Ozarks, sponsored by Dogwood Canyon. Streaming live, ksgf.com. Also on YouTube, you can watch us there. That's sponsored by Springfield Wraps. The wonderful folks over there. Good people, good people. New polling out there. Rust Belt numbers looking good for Trump. Definitely not good for the Kamala Harris campaign, and some signs that blue states may be in play. Wisconsin, this is one that's getting a lot of attention. And Wisconsin to me looks to be formulating, with the help of Kamala Harris, a perfect storm that is going to give Wisconsin to Donald Trump. There's an internal poll that was done by Democrat Tammy Baldwin that is leaked out. She is Democrat U.S. Senator running for re-election. And the internal polling, they do this polling, and of course it's for her own campaign, but at the same time, they're going to ask other questions to gauge, what's going on on the full landscape. And one of the questions is about Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. And the internal poll that was done last week showed Harris losing by 3 points to Donald Trump in Wisconsin, while Baldwin was up by 2 points. So what this means, of course, and this is where you have bad news for Kamala Harris, is you've got some crossover here. Some people in Wisconsin who are planning on voting for the Democrat for the U.S. Senate, but they are not going to vote for Kamala Harris. Some of those may be voting for Donald Trump. I'm telling you, this Jill Stein thing and the fact that Kamala Harris was last week had Liz Cheney running around the state with her. I mean, I don't know that there could have been a greater boneheaded move by the Kamala Harris campaign and their very limited understanding of the landscape. Convince them that, oh, well, she's a Republican, and so it's going to show that bipartisan support. And that's because labels generally for the left is all that matters. So nothing else matters but labels. It's all labels, labels, labels. Labels, 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 labels. That's all that matters. Well, to your hardcore activists, that may be the case as well. But to a lot of average people, labels are not nearly as important. And the problem that Harris has here, and she's firing on all cylinders in the wrong direction, is that your hardcore lefties are turned off by the Cheneys. And that wouldn't be so bad if Jill Stein, who is an extreme, quote, anti-war leftist, is on the ballot in Wisconsin, which gives those people a movement. And at the same time, you have now this this movement within the extreme left of the Muslim community and the Arab community, and it was a Drop Biden campaign movement, and they had refused to endorse him. Then it became, I forget exactly the name of the movement, but it was driven at, hey, we're not going to support now Kamala Harris, but they have now, within the last couple of days, come out and they're telling their followers and their supporters to support Jill Stein. So in Wisconsin, you have this scenario, this ground game, in which they keep gifting Donald Trump a potential win. Now, they've tried to throw Jill Stein off the ballot, but she's still on there. And then to go around and, we've got the Cheneys on our side. And I just, it's like, what are you doing? I know what they're doing, but it's just so one-dimensional. It is so lacking in any nuance or depth of understanding of what's going on. And so that's how you end up at this point with Donald Trump 3 points up in Wisconsin. Now, they'll blame Jill Stein just like they blamed Jill Stein for winning in 2016 because she was on the ballot in Wisconsin and drew away, or she had enough votes that if those votes were otherwise going to go to Hillary Clinton, then according to the numbers, Hillary Clinton would have won. But let's not forget, Hillary Clinton miscalculated Wisconsin by never even bothered to go to the state. She just never went, never campaigned there. If she had gone to campaign there, things may have gone differently. But the left likes to blame everyone else, and so they claim that it was Jill Stein who caused the problem, and they've put themselves right back in this corner again. The state of Wisconsin, not the only one looking good for the Trump campaign. The Democracy Institute polling shows that Trump is up with the national popular vote by 3, which, of course, isn't ultimately relevant. But Pennsylvania up by 4. Michigan up by 1. And their polling shows Wisconsin up by 2. So that is, of course, in line with Tammy Baldwin's internal polling showing that he is up there by 3. The poll also showed that half of voters would vote for Trump in the upcoming election, while only 47% said Harris. Voters also favored Trump in the key battleground state of Pennsylvania, half backing Trump. So, okay, those are the breakdown of those numbers. So, point being, things are. This is why I suspect Trump is just gonna, if he's going to keep heading in this direction. He's going to just keep doing what he's doing. Meanwhile, the Harris campaign is going to continue to panic and pivot and shift, and there aren't that many moves left that can be made. And the big challenge that the Democrats have right now is the fact that, the average person just thinks that we're heading the wrong direction in this country. I mean, that's the big roadblock that they come into. You can only message so much. I mean, you get wiggle room within that messaging. So when you've got only, what I think it's 21% of people that say we're headed in the right direction, the rest either don't know or they think we're headed in the wrong direction. You can try to convince them, oh, I'm an agent of change, but, that only goes so far. And then when she goes around to these different talk shows over the past couple of days saying that she wouldn't change anything about the Biden administration, that runs contrary to the one dishonest marketing strategy that could potentially be successful, and that is convincing Americans that, well, you're somebody different and you're going to turn the page. Well, she's sabotaging that messaging. This is part of the reason that she's just bad at this. I mean, if it were not men handing her positions, no one would even know her name. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. In addition to the latest polling showing that Donald Trump is up in Pennsylvania by 4, Wisconsin 2, Michigan 1. A new poll showing Trump leading Kamala Harris by 2 points in Arizona. The poll conducted by Fabrizio Ward and Impact Research for AARP between September 24th and October 1st found that in a two-way race between Trump and Harris, Trump gets 50% of support while Harris received 48. If you throw other candidates, Trump gets 49, Harris gets 47. The poll also found that Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein received 1% of support, while 3% of voters expressed that they were undecided. So Arizona, another state in which Trump is doing well. Now Carrie Lake is running for the U.S. Senate there, and she's not doing well in the polling. Last polling show, I don't know how accurate the polling, but she hasn't been poised, according to any of the polls, to win there. But the point is, I mean, on one hand, of course, that's not good news for the Republicans, but there is within that some good news for Donald Trump, and it shows that you have a significant number of voters who plan on voting for Democrats in certain capacities but they're still going to vote for Donald Trump. And that's good news for the Trump campaign. I've got audio coming up in which the Teamsters Union president, Sean O'Brien, is on with Theo Vaughn. And I mean, he just lets loose on the Democrats. I mean, lets loose on them. That audio we've got in mere moments. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 81. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 85.
The Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, was on Theo Vaughn's This Past Weekend podcast. Theo Vaughn is a comedian. Has he already been here through here? I know he was at the Q or Great Southern Arena. I think maybe he was there a couple of weeks ago. He's a comedian. For those who are not familiar, he's one of the more popular. He's got a huge following in terms of podcasts. Trump was on with him several weeks ago, and it's again those interviews. Trump just, you see that side of Trump that isn't the working businessman side. The thing about Trump, I know I'm diverting here a bit, but Trump, he does have two personas, and it's not like a fake one and a real one. There's a business time one, and then a non-business time one. And when he's out there campaigning for president, he's in work mode. And when he does interviews on Fox News or on political talk shows, he's in work mode. But when he gets on some of these podcasts, where you've got like a Theo Vaughn who's not a political guy. I mean, he's there to talk about what's going on, but there's just he is more in his just Donald Trump non-work mode, and he's very, very different likable. I had mentioned there was it was about an hour long video on Netflix, and some golfer, he does this challenge thing where he has different celebrity golfers that they play so many holes, and you watch Trump on it, and he's inquisitive, he's self-deprecating, he's just different, and I get when you see that and you hear that and you understand that that's what's going on. It makes sense how it is that these people who hate Trump, then they get behind closed doors with him, and all of a sudden they come out and they just seem different. It's like they saw some side of Trump that they didn't realize existed. And when he sits down with some of these interviews, when he was on with Red Eye and Gutfeld, though Gutfeld obviously is political, there's just something about some of these guys that aren't political. They may talk about political things, but they're not political in the sense so many of us think about. And it's amazing to me that you see some of these. I think I don't know, there's something about it I like, where people like Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn, a comedian, are getting some of these really big interviews, and their interviews are becoming more relevant than interviews that are done by 60 Minutes or on CNN, because those settings, they have an agenda, and people know that now. People get it. They know whenever MSNBC has an interview with Kamala Harris, what the game is. It's to help her get elected. They know when Donald Trump, there's some interview with Donald Trump, they know what the gig is. It's to try and torpedo him. People know this. But whenever you have somebody like a Joe Rogan or a Theo Vaughn, and even a Greg Gutfeld, although he's more politically minded, but not political party minded. But it's just they are relatable because, they don't really have an agenda other than really kind of figuring these people out, which is what the average American tries to do. And we're watching and it's, by the way, this is why the left hates these people. It's why they hate the Joe Rogan. They try to cast these people as right-wing individuals when they're not by any stretch of the imagination. Elon Musk is someone else that falls into this category. These are individuals that are just curious about what's going on from different walks of life. They're not overtly political, but they just want to figure out these people. And when they sit down and question them, they ask questions that are relevant to normal people. And I find it fascinating that this segment of the population that are not the political wonks, that are just the normal everyday people, in terms of politics. I mean, obviously Theo Vaughn is famous and a comedian and lives a lifestyle like Joe Rogan, does. It's not like you and I. But when it comes to the things that concern us in our daily lives, they're the same page as we are to some degree, and that they are becoming more and more relevant while the experts are becoming less and less relevant. And I think that's a good thing. Teamsters President Sean O'Brien was on with Theo Vaughn and his podcast, and he had the following to say about the Democrat Party.
I'll be honest with you, I'm a Democrat, but they have f***ed us over for the last 40 years, and for once, not all of them, but for once, we're standing up as a union, probably the only one right now, saying, what the f*** have you done for us?
Yeah.
And I'm getting attacked from the left. And we've given, since I've been in office 2.5 years, we've given the Democratic machine $15.7 million. We've given Republicans about $340,000, truth be told. So it's like, people say the Democratic Party is the party of the working people. They're bought and paid for by big tech. Those big tech companies.
Yeah, tech is the new fossil fuel, man.
Right?
That's what I say.
Right. And you've got the Republicans who are now saying, hey, we want to be the working class party, right? And, okay, you've got a great opportunity right now to do that. And the Democrats, if 60% of our members aren't supporting you, the system's broken. Yeah. And you need to fix it. Stop pointing fingers at Sean O'Brien. Stop pointing fingers at the Teamsters Union. Look in the mirror. I mean, I had a heated discussion 2 weeks ago with Chuck Schumer. And it got ugly.
Chuck Schumer is a piece of
And it got ugly because, these politicians, the one thing I've learned, they walk in and they tell you, I did this for you. Okay, great. Let me tell you what you haven't done for us or our members. And we got into it pretty heavy. And I'm like, you had no problem taking $550,000 from me 3 weeks prior to me going on the Republican National Convention. And then you want to be a tough guy on Twitter or X or whatever it is and throw out there about me? Like, whatever.
All right, so that, again, was is the head of the Teamsters Union. Incidentally, that awakening, if you want to call it that, is what is at the same time occurring within a number of communities in the African-American. The black community is one of them as well. This is why there is a slow but potentially steady erosion of black support in the Democrat Party, because they're saying the same thing. What have you done? I mean, for decades, we've supported you. And what are we getting in return? What's interesting about Sean O'Brien's perspective here is particularly these large unions. The union leadership is not there to support the union members. It's to support the Democrat Party. But at some point, and this is essentially where O'Brien's coming from, you got to give something in return. Now, you and I recognize that they do give something in return all the time. I mean, that money circulates, and they push for policies that may, in a vacuum, look on paper like they help the unions. But the problem is, of course, when you tank the entire economy, then that harms union workers as well. And this is why you have Democrats running around complaining about these union members who are overwhelmingly throwing their support behind Trump, saying, well, we're the ones who have helped you. This is Bernie Sanders the other day. I mean, many of the Democrats are speaking up, and they're angry at these workers. Don't you know what we've done for you? Because they don't see it through the lens of how everyone, including union members, have been affected by their economic policies. All they see it through is, well, we helped you with this contract and we funneled these projects to you to help you. And so it's like these little doses of favors. But when the overall environment is so damaged, it far outweighs any sort of perks you get as a union member supporting the Democrat Party. And the Democrats don't seem to get that. They think, no, you owe us. And this is what O'Brien is expressing a frustration at, is that, and he said, Chuck Schumer, this is what they do. They come in, they're like, well, we did this for you. We did this for you. But the problem is the economy overall has been so tanked by these people. The average American family, the average worker has been so harmed by the economic policies of the Democrat Party that you have, in some instances, like O'Brien here, saying, decades we've been supporting you. In the last 2 years, he notes 15 or 150, however many millions and millions of dollars we've given to Democrats. And for what? But don't worry, because Kamala Harris has Glenn Close and Jessica Alba out there telling those hardworking blue-collar workers that they need to throw their support behind her. Okay, let's see here. A quote from, this is, some time ago. It's an old tweet or old message. There are a couple different stories here that run parallel to one another I wanted to share with you, and it has to do with the coaxing of young people into getting sex change operations. And one's the New York Post. A new national database mapping sex change operations and medications to assist in the process for minors is beginning to show some numbers of the victims. Researchers were able to identify a total of 13,994 minors across the United States who received treatment for gender dysphoria over the course of 4 years. Shockingly, over 5,700 of those children were in some capacity operated on in the context of sex change operations. 5,700. The searchable database from Do No Harm is called Does My Hospital Transition Kids? and launched yesterday. It maps providers and hospitals which provide gender-affirming care, as they call it, sex change operations. The database can be searched by state or by specific facility if you're wondering about your local hospital. In total, there are 225 children hospital on the map. Now, we'll get this up for you to do searches. And I haven't searched the locals here, but I've received communications from people who work in some of these hospitals that indicate that sort of as quietly as possible, potentially some of this stuff is going on. They found 5,747, the organization, unique patients receiving sex change operation surgeries, as well as 8,579 patients on puberty blockers and or hormone replacement therapy. Overall, they counted more than 60,000 total prescriptions written. In all, the cost of insurance claims submitted by the roughly 14,000 patients amounted to $120 million, according to the new website. Now, that's where you got a Daily Caller piece come in. U.S. hospitals raking in $120 million performing sex changes on thousands of kids. This is a moneymaker. They're butchering children for cash. Over a 5-year period, raking in $120 million. And I'm telling you, they see it as the tip of the iceberg. They see it as there are a lot more kids out there we can trick into getting sex change operations. This is a money maker. Do No Harm chairman Dr. Stanley Goldfarb said during a press call that the database should dispel myths that the procedures are rare events or localized to just a few places in the country. While the procedures are widespread across the U.S., Do No Harm's database highlights a dirty dozen of hospitals, exposing ones that have been the most vocal in their advocacy for offering sex change procedures to minors for cash. Some of those: Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Connecticut, Children's Medical Center, Children's Minnesota, Seattle Children's, and Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. These are children's hospitals. There was a video that popped up on a feed, and this was the day before yesterday, I think. Or maybe it was Friday, actually. And it was the actress Joey King. And she's one of those, some of you may know who she is. If you look her up, then you probably, oh yeah, I recognize her. And she was holding up a picture of herself when she was 14. And I got the feeling this is one of these a trend, if you want to call it. Maybe, I don't know if just for celebrities, but for people showing a picture of themselves when they were 14 and talking about what they were like when they were 14. And she's not. She may be in her late 20s or mid-20s at this point. I don't know how old she is. She's relatively young. But she has a picture of herself, and she's, sort of laughing, looking back on it. But she's talking about how she hated her body back then. Oh, she looked at it, and she's like, oh, my gosh, did I hate my body. I was so uncomfortable. I was so awkward. Everything she said about how she felt back then as a 14-year-old are feelings that today are used to trick kids into getting these money-making sex change operations. Everything she said. Felt awkward. Didn't feel like she fit in her own body. Hated her body. These are the emotions that many people go through during that period of time. Most people do, particularly girls. This is why we get separated into the different classes, and you're changing body. And what the way we used to deal with this is telling kids, don't worry, you're going to get through it. It's okay. If you need somebody to talk to, we'll get you to talk to somebody who's been through the exact same thing. And we know it's really going to suck, but this is, it's tough, and we get that, but this is normal. But now those same kids are told this is not normal. You're going to kill yourself, in fact, if you don't get a sex change operation. And when you see the millions and millions and millions of dollars that these butchers are receiving for convincing these kids to take these actions, yet if you're against it, you're the extremist. And I just thought about that Joey King actress, and if she were 14 today, what horrific things, if they got her claws into her, they would have done to her to destroy her life. Here she is, a very confident, successful young woman who is extremely happy with herself and her life today, pleased with who she is, and that would have been completely derailed, completely destroyed. And you think about the thousands and thousands of young people who have unfortunately come across someone who got their claws in them, and instead of being able to navigate through and grow out of it and become strong, independent, satisfied young women, their entire lives are destroyed for cash and some sort of political movement by the left. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. And in the next hour, Biden once again just throwing Kamala under the bus by talking about what a tremendous job Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida in terms of hurricane relief. News in 60. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you need to buy a home, you need Emily Johnson. If you need to sell your home, same answer. Maybe just some questions. This is what is great about her. There are a lot of those out there. They're just interested in bringing in as much revenue as quickly as possible. So that means trying to convince you that this house is for you. This means not dealing with you unless you are ready to sign an agreement to use them, because they don't want to waste their time on you if you're not going to be a moneymaker for them. That's not how Emily Johnson operates. And she's smart. She knows that that's the key to long-term success, providing you the absolute best service possible. That is what benefits you. She's a long-term thinker. It's what benefits everyone. And so even if you have any questions about selling your home, what is it worth exactly? You cannot go by Zillow. I saw, incidentally, this article that Zillow is now going to start incorporating like climate impact reports attached to your home as well. Now, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but point being is that for a number of reasons, you can't get that Zillow estimate and go, oh, that must mean what my house is worth, for a lot of reasons. And it varies state to state to what information they actually have access to anyhow. Emily Johnson can explain all of that. But point being is, you know, she can do that for you. You don't have to have, you know, some sort of financial relationship going on, or even know if you're wanting to sell your home. For all of your home buying needs, selling needs, and questions you may have, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We looked up this, or Sarah did rather, this Stop the Harm database that is beginning to put together information regarding sex change operations that kids are coaxed into getting. And what has been found is that over the last several years, $120 million has been raked in by convincing kids that what otherwise is either normal discomfort or awkwardness going through puberty, or sometimes it's real psychological and emotional issues due to sexual trauma. They convince them that, well, a sex change operation is the answer to all of your happiness. And in fact, if you don't get one, you'll probably kill yourself. And it's a moneymaker for them. It's sick. It's dark. But this is where, I mean, some of these people, that's what it's about. It is about bottom line. And this report showed that in Missouri, there have been 44 children that have been coaxed into getting sex change operations. There have been 151 receiving the irreversibly damaging total hormone and puberty blockers. And it breaks down prescriptions and sex change patients as well. Now, on the listing, Mercy Springfield is not on here, so I don't know if that means that there is no activity there. Cox Medical Center currently, according to the database, is receiving 15 kids that are sex change patients, and they've even done a surgery. They've butchered a child there at Cox Medical Center South. Barnes Jewish Hospital, 9. St. Louis Women's Surgery Center, 2. University Health Truman Medical Center, 7. These are kids that have been butchered. St. Luke's Hospital of Kansas City, 1. Barnes Jewish West County Hospital, 3. Lee Summit Medical Center, 2. Centerpoint Medical Center, 1. These are all in Missouri, according to the database. St. Louis Surgical Center, 2. Missouri Baptist Medical Center, 2. I'm going through and looking at those who have done surgery. Citizens Memorial Hospital, 1. St. Luke's Health System, Inc., 1. Centene Corporation, 1. Webster Family Physicians, PC, 1. Parkcrest Plastic Surgery, 1. Hormone and puberty blocker patients, Boone Hospital Center, 1. Missouri Baptist Medical Center, 2. Cox Medical Center, Branson, 1. Cox Monette, 1. Ozark Medical Center, 1. And, it continues. There are a lot of hospitals. I'm going to sit here and list all of them. But we'll get this so you can have a look, if you'd like, to the number of kids that have been victimized here in the state of Missouri. This database will have, is it under must-read headlines?
Yes.
So we've got it at ksgf.com. yesterday, Biden repeated an offense, if you will, politically speaking, that he committed the week before, and that is while Kamala Harris has the news media trying to help get her elected by carrying live an event, Joe Biden pops up to do a press conference or talk to reporters at the same time, which means the cameras go to him. Last week, she was at a rally. I believe it was Michigan. Could have been some other state. She was at a rally. And then Joe Biden comes into the press room with Karine Jean-Pierre. There were audible gasps from reporters when he walked in. I don't know that he's ever done that. When Karine Jean-Pierre is holding a press conference now, he may have one. I don't know that he has, though. Point being is it is so rare for him, particularly just to randomly show up and start answering questions, reporters, or talking to reporters, that, like I said, there was an audible gasp in the press corps when he did it. Well, he did it while Kamala had the cameras fixed on her. Now, what you've got to understand is that this is not an accident. Within the White House, they're constantly monitoring everything, particularly the press room. They're monitoring all this stuff. They know exactly what's going on with Kamala Harris. So they knew that the networks trying to help get her elected had her live carrying this event whenever it was decided by someone that Joe Biden needs to go out. And they knew fully what was going to happen, and it is what happened, that the networks then cut away from her to go to him. How long has it been since this guy did any sort of Q&A with reporters? He did it again yesterday. Now, I don't know. Arguably, Biden doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, they may grab him, or they know ahead of time. For example, they know she's going to be on The View. So they plan some sort of press event for him at that same night. But somebody is doing this deliberately. And it occurred again yesterday. This time, a double whammy. Not only is it drawing attention away from Kamala Harris, but it's throwing her under the bus. Of course, she has tried to pick a battle with Ron DeSantis by claiming that he was selfish because he did not allow her to be part of the hurricane efforts. He's, of course, dealing with the current administration. Obviously, he's very busy with the aftermath of the first hurricane, the second hurricane coming, and Kamala Harris has never been part of the equation. You know, he's got his little Rolodex, and all right, here we go again. So we've got the point people, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, Kamala Harris is, wanting to have a phone call with him, and he just doesn't have time for that sort of crap. So she rails on him for it. And that he's being selfish. He's failing the people of Florida with his response. Well, quite the contrary, says Joe Biden yesterday.
Florida cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. He talked to him again yesterday. I said, whatever. He said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to him.
So Ron DeSantis, of course, is the worst governor ever in the history of the country. He was going to kill millions of people because of his COVID response. He's the second coming of Hitler. All of a sudden, while Kamala Harris is trying to pick a fight with him in the middle of election season, we've just got a few weeks left. Joe Biden's out there. Ron DeSantis, he's doing great. He's doing fantastic. He's got everything. He doesn't need any help from me. He's doing fantastic. Everything. We're all doing great. Do you know how angry the Harris?
I know.
You know
I
how
could just imagine.
angry
She's
they have to be, and her people. This is just the curiosity in me wondering, and I thought about this while this is happening. Now, twice he's done this, really sabotaged her and her narrative. In this case, she was trying to create a narrative, and it wasn't working for her anyhow. But then Biden puts the final nail in that coffin. So there's got to be a lot of real anger there. Is she still going to the White House as the vice president? Are they isolated from one another at this point? Do they know why he is trying to sabotage her? Is this pettiness? Is this anger? Is it because, she is out there saying, hey, I'm going to do things differently, suggesting that things aren't going, or she's acknowledging essentially in that marketing that, oh yeah, things aren't going well. That's why we're going to turn the page. Now, of course, it's a contradiction to so much that she has also said, but that aside, he's an egotistical guy, and he's been thrown under the bus, and now Kamala's out there sort of, in some instances, trying to distance herself from him, which is why he keeps getting out there and is like, no, she's been there the whole time. I mean, every single decision I've made, she's been a part of. So you have he is sabotaging the narrative that is needed in order for her to have a chance to win. And that is that to separate herself. And obviously they want to be able to separate her from him without overtly doing it, without directly saying, no, here's how I'm different. These are the areas in which things have gone badly under Joe Biden. And so the way that they have attempted to do it without being so overt is just to talk about turning the page. Well, so it suggests that she's the agent of change. Well, Biden comes in and he's just doing everything he can to sabotage that. It's clearly deliberate. And they know, and I just can't help but wonder, are there conversations going on between the are they picking up the phone and they're like, what in the hell is going on? Why are you doing this? Or do they know why he's doing it so they don't bother? Such intrigue. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 81. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 85.
So I received a text indicating that at the time of Biden popping in and doing that surprise little press room appearance, that it was being reported that was the first time that he's ever done that. So did you see that as well?
Yeah.
I kind of honestly am looking forward to what's next with these. It's because and there's this new Bob Woodward book coming out, which now it's Bob Woodward, so of course you can't really, there's a lot of it in there that you're like, whatever. And of course he's going to rail on Trump, but part of it is, well, one, a walk away is that Joe Biden is basically, he's just angry at everyone all the time. Everyone's a mother effer. Benjamin Netanyahu, he hates him. He hates Donald Trump. He apparently seems to some degree hate at least some of the things that Obama has done. He blames Obama for Putin invading Ukraine, saying that it was, it's Biden or Obama's fault because Obama didn't take him seriously, just like he didn't take ISIS seriously. And so, some of the takeaways from the book are, it paints Biden as this kind of crazy, off the hook, angry guy that's, mother effing everybody. And it's just, but like I said, it's Bob Woodward. So who knows? All right. Coming up, 60 Minutes is being rightfully criticized for cleaning up Kamala Harris's performance on 60 Minutes. And then she goes on The View, she goes on Colbert, and she sabotages her own messaging of being an agent of change by saying that she just she can't think of anything she'd do different than what Biden has done. Oh, all right. CBS 60 Minutes airs two different answers from VP Harris to the same question. CBS aired the two different answers, replacing a clip of Harris that aired on Face the Nation Sunday when the interview package aired in a primetime special on Monday. Harris was mocked by conservatives when footage, and people who talk. She was mocked by conservatives when footage of her offering a lengthy word salad that was aired on CBS's Sunday's Face the Nation to promote the 60-minute sit-down when Bill Whitaker asked why it seemed like Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't listening to the United States. However, the vice president's lengthy answer did not make the version that aired Monday night on 60 Minutes, and a shorter, more focused answer to the same question was shown instead. So in other words, they cleaned it up because part of Kamala Harris's issue with communication is that the word salads, they're not side salads. They're big salads. It's the big salad, which means there's a lot in it. And that exasperates it. That really amplifies the word salad. Like, oh my gosh, this is a big salad. And so CBS pared it down in order to make her sound less like she's wandering and just doesn't know when to stop. Of course they did. Now, one may ask, well, why did they air it in the first place then? I suspect what happened is they doubt that they felt that it was a great answer or made her look good, but probably thought, well, there's not much we can do with this. Let's just, I mean, it's an important question. We have to get the question in there. We got to get the answer in there. So they put it in its entirety, and they recognized a couple of things may have occurred here. One, they saw the public reaction. The fact that Team Trump and Republicans are pushing this out to make sure as many people see it as possible, and they thought, oh, this clearly is not good. We need to try and clean this. We can't leave it out of the interview or the rebroadcasting. I mean, we've aired it already. We've been pre-selling this thing already, so we can't now completely leave it out. We've got to do something. So they edit it down to make it sound less like she was wandering around, and take the big salad and make it just a side salad. Or the campaign even called and said, you need to edit that. You need to fix that. It reminded me of this story from months ago that I shared with you at the time. Radio station edited Biden interview at campaign's request before airing. A Wisconsin-based talk radio station edited its interview with President Joe Biden at the request of his campaign before it aired last week, broadcaster Civic Media said in a statement Thursday. Again, this was before the billionaire donors had Biden's election overthrown and bought the nomination for Harris. So this would be back pre-July or in July. Immediately after the interview, conducted on July 3rd, the Biden campaign called and asked for 2 edits to the recording. And WAUK's production team cut 2 segments after determining them to be non-substantive. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, nothing Kamala Harris says is of substance. It's because her word salads are iceberg lettuce. Civic Media Management became aware of the edits Monday, shared the audio of the full, unedited interview in its Thursday statement, citing the gravity of the current political movement, the stakes in the election, the importance of public scrutiny of public officials in the highest office. So, in other words, what occurred here is there was audio of an interview, and the campaign thought, we need to edit that down. Called, and they complied. So when we see that 60 Minutes has in its interview package, and they're pre-promoting it by playing some of it, and there is a clear backlash and mocking of Kamala Harris because of her word salad answer about Benjamin Netanyahu, and all of a sudden, when they air it in their prime time, it's edited down to sound more concise, making her look a little less clueless. It's only obvious to wonder whether or not that was the result. It was the result of one of two things. Either it was their own instinct in an effort to make her look better, or once again, you have a call being placed demanding that it be edited so that she sounds good. And I think given that, at least the Biden, and a lot of the Harris campaign people are the same from the Biden campaign. I mean, she's got some of her own people, but a lot of the Biden campaign people went over to the Kamala Harris campaign. So given that those people, at least in one instance, though I suspect many more, have called up post-interview and said, here's how we want this edited, these are the things we want taken out, and there was compliance, did that occur here? And if 60 Minutes has even the slightest desire to protect its reputation as a reputable news source, then it's incumbent upon them to address that. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Coming up Friday, 10 a.m., local for less. Springfield Little Theater's Murder on the Orient Express. For $25, you'll get a $50 gift certificate that you can use to purchase your tickets to see the performance, Murder on the Orient Express, at the Historic Landers Theater, October 18th through 27th. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 80, tonight clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 81, and on Friday, sunny with a high near 85.
Oh, those Carica boys and their team. They're your home loan folks. If you already have a bank, establishment, credit union, whatever, and you're like, well, that's who I do my stuff through. Hey, listen, second opinion's always good. In fact, third, fourth, fifth, as many as possible. But reasonably speaking, 2 or 3 is usually what we have time for in life, and definitely 2. So if you have not made them your first stop in your quest to receive information and find out what is possible in terms of refinancing or home loan, then make them stop number 2. And it's iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. All right, let's see here. So Kamala Harris, she's not good at this at all. She really is not good at this. It is possible for a person to almost feel sorry for her, because it's her fault for getting herself into this. And I'm not saying she can't win. I mean, when you have the power of the media behind you and the power of censorship behind you and the power of the emotion of hate behind you, that is a lot. That is a lot. So it's not impossible. But there really has never been anyone so ill-equipped to run for president that has made it to the point that she has. And it's because, again, she's had everything handed to her. Her foothold into California politics was because of being Willie Brown's side piece. I mean, so that's her California career. Her White House career as vice president was because she checked off the boxes that Biden said his pick had to check off. And in reality, the options were extremely limited. I mean, who else would he really choose? It had to be a woman of color. She was the only one who had run for president, though failed miserably. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, you know, she's a traitor to them. I mean, I don't know that some people would necessarily, you know. I mean, I would say she's as much a person as color as Kamala Harris. But anyway, point being is really, if you think about it, who else would he pick? So it wasn't anything she earned. It was something she got because she was a woman of color. And Biden said that was his requirement. Weren't a lot of those people that could be chosen, that they felt had some chance of, you know, helping things out and not being a total train wreck. And there were a number of other names floated, but I mean, they all had such backgrounds. I mean, one of them, I forget who she was, but she was like a huge fan of Fidel Castro. And well, that may, especially if we want to win Florida back, that's going to be a problem. What, Maxine Waters? Carol Moseley Braun? I mean, so this is a woman who's never really had to, on her own merits, based off of her own ideas and track record, run for anything. Well, she ran for Attorney General of California in the U.S. Senate. She was in. That's how California works. She got in because she was Willie Brown's side piece, and then that was it. That's all she had to do. From that, particularly in California, the party just picks and like, okay, and then you're a Democrat, so you're gonna win. She's never run for anything, really legitimately run, even the nomination. It was bought for her by the donors. So to some degree, in fairness to her, she's gone from never legitimately running for anything to now she's running for the presidency, and she's not even really running for that. I mean, she hasn't been. She's been trying to the last couple of weeks, and she's failing miserably. Now, she, of course, did run in the primary in 2016, but we saw how that went. I think she was the first one to drop out. Tulsi Gabbard helped that along by just destroying her on the debate stage. So a human being could conceivably feel kind of bad for her. But then you listen to her and I don't know, that sort of fades away. She's on The View. She gets booked these friendly shows. And the whole point is to serve up questions to help her. And the biggest obstacle she has right now, aside from the fact that she is her, but in terms of issues and what concerns the average American person, is that the vast majority of people feel that we are headed in the wrong direction, and it's the result of these policies. And so it is to market her as being separate from these policies. And people, and you're like, okay, agent of change, but what are you going to do? And so one of the ways that they are trying to set her up is to ask her, okay, so just tell people how you'll be different. Give them something. This is, she's just remarkably not prepared for this absolute, and you know that these questions were given in advance. So here she is on The View.
And he said there wasn't a single thing that he did that you could not do. Mm-hmm. What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
Well, we're obviously two different people, and we have a lot of shared life experiences. For example, the way we feel about our family and our parents and so on. But we're also different people, and I will bring those sensibilities to how I lead. For example, I know we're going to talk today, but one of the issues that I'm very focused on is what we do around home health care.
Yes.
I have done a lot of work as it relates to, sadly, but violence against women and children. I care a lot about that. I love our small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me predominantly, but we had what we called a second mother who lived 2 houses down who helped my mother raise us. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. And so the influence of a personal experience will have its impact on the presidency.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
How could she not have been prepared for that? You could just almost the uncomfortable, painful nature of trying to edge her along. The question opened with, how are you guys different? And she has said this on more than one occasion. Well, first of all, we're two different people. Okay, thank you for that. We're two different humans.
Whenever she goes, well, obviously I'm not Joe Biden.
Yeah. Obviously, we're different. I'm not. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now continue.
Yeah. All right. And so then she meanders around, doesn't answer the question, and so then the attempt to give her, all right, well, let's give her a second crack at this. Okay, so let's put it this way. What would you do differently? And can you imagine the feeling that they had inside when she's like, well, nothing. I can't think of anything at all. What are you doing? What are you doing? This is someone that we expect to have judgment to run the country.
And people find her inspiring.
Oh, yes. Very, very inspiring.
I don't get it.
She was on Colbert, similar attempt to assist her in this same arena. Because again, and it's very clear they all understand their job. And that is, we have to make people they want something different. So how are you different? I mean, it can't be any more clear what they're trying to do in order to help her.
Polling shows that a lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the present administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
Well,
I know.
And so that would be one change. But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
Could she just list off all the people she's
not? The significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country. I love that it is our character and nature to be an ambitious people. We have aspirations, we have dreams, we have incredible work ethic, and I just believe that we can create and build upon the success we've achieved in a way that we continue to grow opportunity, and in that way grow the strength of our nation. So for example, my economic policies, I think of it, and I've named it as creating an opportunity economy.
And it just goes on and on. Okay, so now what is going to be the major difference? I like how she started adding new people to lists that she's not. Now, I'm not Joe Biden. Okay. Well, she's like, well, God, they applauded me for that. Well, I'm also not Donald Trump.
But you know who Trump is? Trump's Hitler.
Yeah. And I'm also not Hitler. I'm not Grover. I'm just going to start listing random people that I'm not. And, they applauded me for it. She did. It's funny. Like a dog reacting, realized that, wait a minute, I did something right. I got a treat. I said I'm not Joe Biden. They applauded me. Now I'm going to say I'm not Donald Trump. Oh, they applauded even louder. I'm doing, in her mind, she's like, you're nailing this, Kamala. You're nailing this thing. Meanwhile, I would be curious what the honest conversations are after these interviews occur amongst these people asking the questions. Because if they're honest with their intuition, they have to be thinking, she might just be stupid. I mean, does she not understand what we're doing here for her? Does she not understand the reason we're asking these questions? To not be prepared for them, not to have an answer for them. We've gotten so deep into this, particularly post-Biden, you really do have to step back and think, of all of there are a lot of Democrats out there. This is the best? This is this is the one that the donors bought the nomination for? And after Biden, what are you people doing? I know you have to have people that are not just flat out stupid that could be running. Arguably, Josh Shapiro is one of them, of course, but he's Jewish, and Democrats can't do that. It's like they have this litmus test, this listing of people, and they eliminate good possibilities while delivering themselves these horrific possibilities. So you can't have somebody like a popular governor, Shapiro, because he's a Jew, and so Democrats can't do that. But Kamala Harris, who's never actually had to run on her own merits and get elected, who's a dingbat, generously speaking, and their little checklist, that's what they get. I think they need to maybe recalibrate their little list of requirements. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. If you are considering replacing or repairing your roof, fall is typically the best time to hire professionals for those services. And I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, conditions, they are perfect. It is the end of stormy season, and it's just a great time to prepare for that cooler weather that's going to hit the Ozarks here in a couple of weeks. And by re-roofing in the fall, you'll be able to actually reap some of those benefits of better insulation, in those colder winter months ahead. And a new roof can actually help you reduce those heating bills. Plus, right now, you can expect a quicker turnaround on installations and an overall just better deal.
Sorry.
Wow, that was rude.
Sorry, it was rude.
What was that?
It was a auto roll video. It's
Psh, okay.
stray audio.
Well, let me continue telling you about the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, if you need a whole new roof, just a simple roof repair, or you just want to get that free roof inspection to just get a checkup on your roof, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company. Plus, you can see photos and videos of the work that the Pyramid team did out at my home. All of that is going to be housed under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Also on Colbert last night, this just some of these inauthentic, fake, cringy, set up exchanges that are meant to make Kamala Harris seem as if she is just like one of us.
You first became the nominee and named Tim Walz as your vice president nominee. People were calling it the vibe election. All the vibes were all good, but elections I think are won on vibes because one of the old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay.
So
This was now we used to have to give a drink to the vice president of the United States, but you asked for Miller High Life. You asked for High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug. So
Right before he hit me.
There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There you go.
Gosh.
No.
Did you hear? He's like, now, and we ask, and you requested Miller High Life. Yes, I'm sure that's exactly what she drinks. In the swing state of Wisconsin. Oh, it's just amazing that's where it came. It is so fake. So fake. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't try to get her to shotgun it. They probably did, and she almost drowned herself. So they're like, well, we can't. That's what she's practicing doing. How embarrassing. So embarrassing. Just desperately try to pretend to be a normal person. Watching them just try so hard. Again, it's possible to almost feel sorry for her. Don't forget, coming up Saturday, I know we're several days away from it, A1 Custom Car Care. They are very big into, as best as possible, educating and informing you when it comes to your vehicle. And so Sarah co-hosts with Dustin Atwood of A1 Custom Car Care, the show, every Saturday morning right here. And if you miss any of it, you can go back and listen to the podcast. The great thing about the balance with those two is that he's an expert, obviously. And the thing about being an expert in a certain field is sometimes you can genuinely accidentally talk above people because you forget what the average person doesn't know. You're so used to being around vehicles that sometimes what is common to you, you forget isn't common to the average person. Well, Sarah's the average person. And so that balance of having an expert and then just one of us normal people in there really makes for a great show. So that airs on Saturdays, A1 Custom Car Care. And again, if you go to the KSGF.com, the little 3 lines in the upper right-hand corner, click on that, and then on demand or podcast, and you can find it there. So also yesterday, she was on Howard Stern. And I mean, just the only person who embarrassed themselves more than Kamala Harris was Howard Stern. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But at one point, he asks her, I kid you not, if she would leave the country for her safety if Trump wins. Trump, the guy who has already been shot once, came close to getting shot twice, and an individual who had just come from Iran crossing the border with plans to shoot him. That's 3 that we know of. But Kamala Harris is the one who has to be concerned. This is the delusional world that these people on the left have crafted for themselves. We're streaming live, KSGF.com. Any of the show you missed, of course, podcast, Spotify, iTunes, news in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed, streaming live, KSGF.com, YouTube. You can find us there. Just search Springfield's Talk 1041. And you can watch the show as well, see archived shows and audio-wise, Spotify, iTunes, and, of course, KSGF.com. You can get us there. So lots of different places. And this isn't necessarily relevant, but you were looking, Sarah, at the different states where we have our highest listenership outside of Missouri.
Yes.
And Washington State, you said, was
Yeah,
third?
Yeah.
This is so random.
I know. I have no idea. Seattle, specifically.
Now, number 2 is Wisconsin, but that makes
that
sense,
makes sense
because I was up there for a little while and did a show up there before I came back home. So that makes sense. But the Washington State thing, I thought
I have no idea.
So hello to those of you in Washington State. And I know we have Texas and Florida because we get text messages on the text line from those states quite often. That Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Look at the weather in a moment. We're going to jump just a few minutes early, get the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 81. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 85.
Got a text in from Texas from Jim Webb. Back in
Hi,
Texas,
Jim.
safe and listening. Glad he made it back home, Jim Webb. He said that they really feel at home in Texas after being there several years now, but we will still always consider this to be his home.
That's right.
He and Valerie. But glad it was great to see you, Jim, and glad you made it back home safely. Traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed. Amendment 3 is obviously a really, really big amendment people are going to be voting on when it comes to the issue of abortion. There's a lot of disinformation out there. The pro-abortion folks have been very successful, not just here but in other states, when they have these measures on the ballot that allow for abortion all the way up until birth, convincing people that it's only a viability issue. And they do this because they know that there's this huge segment of the population that, they don't want to be completely pro-life because they think of all of these exceptions that they feel are reasonable, but at the same time, they don't support the extremism of abortion till birth. So the issue gets couched by the left as just reasonable and rare and something that happens prior to it actually being a child. And Missouri is one of the states that, in fact, the Federalist recently had a piece, and it's a number of states that are in real danger of having abortion up until birth. Missouri was listed as one of them. And at the same time, we've seen on a national level these surveys, which for a lot of people, a shocking number of self-identified people of faith, specifically Christians, that are like, I don't even bother to vote. I'm not going to bother to vote. And, you see these two things together, and I think it is a real wake-up moment for a lot of people. John Lindell is with us here in studio, and this is something I understand with your church that you do talk about, and we do an Author of the Week segment, and we've had a number of different authors on that talk specifically about the need for churches to start speaking up on this stuff. And so this is part of your messaging as well. Thank you for being here this morning, and talk to us a bit about that, if you would, as a person who is a faith leader.
I think it's really important for the faith community to speak up, because we're talking about a life, and we're talking about the taking of a life. And so I can't think of anything, honestly, that's more important than that. And so if we can't stand for that, then what is there left to stand for? And I think sometimes people want to say, well, it's just all about preaching the gospel. But Martin Luther, the reformer, said this: if you preach the gospel in every way, accepting the issues of your time, you've not preached the gospel at all. And so the fact of the matter is the gospel has got to be contextualized within the issues of our time, and the things that God cares about, we should care about, and he cares about life.
There are so many parallels in this country, and even politically, to the issue of abortion and our history of the issue of slavery. A lot of the argument's the same. It's my property. You shouldn't tell me what to do with my property. You have no right to tell me what to do with my property, sort of dehumanizing that segment of the population. The same arguments are made today. I'm wondering, and I don't know the history of this deep enough it would be interesting to see the parallels between the churches and the people of faith, their play in it. Were they more quiet than they should have been when it came to the issue of slavery? And just that would be an interesting.
Well, actually, the founding of the Southern Baptist Church is an example of the division within the church, that there were Christians that were very vociferously in support of slavery. And so, I do think there's the whole issue of people say, well, it's a woman's, it's my body, it's my choice. But what's happened is, the study of the human genome and DNA has rendered that completely ridiculous, because it's a separate body within the female body. So we're talking two bodies, and even federal law recognizes that. In 2004, there was a law that was passed where if a pregnant woman is killed and she is pregnant, even if the conception was just recent, that person is charged, who killed the woman, charged with 2 murders, accepting abortion. They exempted that. But that was in 2004. That's a federal law. So even the courts recognize it's 2 people in the womb.
Well, and of course, you're in here to talk more about the faith end of this and faith leaders, as opposed to abortion itself. But I think that there is a need to start fighting back against some of these almost accepted cliches that are untrue. Well, it's my body. No, it's not. And there's real easy ways to demonstrate that. Anyone who says that, all right, so a pregnant woman, how many fingers does she have? Well, the answer is 10. Oh, so she doesn't have 20. Yeah. Why are you not counting the fingers on the baby? I mean, really, there's just real simple. How many heads does the mother have? One head? Well, that's interesting because there's one in the baby. So it's not, there's an acknowledge when you really render it down to common sense. Even people who tell themselves that that's the woman's body, they recognize, no, it certainly isn't. Why do you think it is that churches and church leaders for so long and still continue to not want to address these issues?
Well, I think part of it is people have become controversy averse, and they don't want problems. They don't want controversy. They don't want to offend the person that might disagree with them. And so, especially I think post-pandemic, the great reality is that post-pandemic, the attendance in places of worship has dropped precipitously. And so you have people coming fewer times, fewer people coming, and now if you alienate them, it's even worse. So I think that's part of it. I think also the social media, that people will cancel you in a heartbeat on social media. And I think a lot of pastors just simply don't want to deal with that or have their church, being blasted on the internet. So I think that's part of it. And then I think in some sense we've lost our way concerning what's really important. I hate to say that, but how can you look at the abortion issue and not think the taking of a human life is absolutely core to our whole understanding of human dignity and human value and what makes us valuable, and all of that is rooted certainly in a Judeo-Christian concept.
I am probably as extreme, if you want to call it that, pro-life as is possible. And I've said before, and I think it makes a lot of pro-life people uncomfortable, but to me it appears that pro-abortion people, through their actions, demonstrate they're more committed to abortion than pro-life people are to life, oftentimes.
Well,
just as movements.
Well,
culturally.
I think you do have to, the money will speak that, because you look at this issue, $27 million or more, maybe now $30 million, being funneled into Missouri in this race by pro-abortion.
I think it's 8-1. I saw numbers. That
the most recent I heard from a former Speaker of the House in Missouri was it's 30 million versus 600,000, or 27 million versus 600,000. That's $45. To promote a pro-abortion message for every $1. And so part of it is people are not willing to spend the money. The whole thing is so unthinkable. If this were 5 years ago, it would have been a slam dunk. And you look at, I don't think people really realize either the amendment's so vaguely written, purposefully, that people don't understand. Because even as we're messaging from the pulpit, here's what people are saying. Well, I read it and it doesn't say that. So we had the Alliance Defending Freedom do a big brief, and we've been on the phone with them so that we were able to say, no, listen, this is how a legal mind understands this, and these are the ramifications of this, which has given us credibility in challenging the vagueness of that amendment, because otherwise people say, well, it doesn't say that.
Yeah. Well, and as I mentioned earlier, the effectiveness has been misinformation of these campaigns and convincing people that this is sort of, just for rare instances and reasonable, when it is complete opposite, aside from the abortion up until birth. If emotionally it's determined by the person who's getting paid to do the abortion, that is necessary. But even protecting anyone who performs an abortion and perhaps they're negligent and the mother dies in the process, protecting them from being liable for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's unthinkable because, a lot of people are saying, well, just restoring Roe v. Wade and what was lost there. This is going so far beyond in denying parental ability to be involved in removing a woman's right to seek remedy if she's injured, and to say we're not going to have doctors right now. Missouri, you got to be a doctor to do an abortion. That's all gone. Anybody can. And you look at those things and you think, what in the world? Who in their right mind, if they're just being honest, thinks that's a good idea? And nobody does, but there's an agenda. And here's what Missourians don't realize. The Alliance Defending Freedom said this. They said, this amendment puts Missouri in a wild west with the company of California, New York, and Minnesota. People don't realize this is one of the most radical abortion. This is not Ohio. This is not other states who have recently passed. This is one of the most radical amendments that has been promoted, and it's being promoted because they're saying if we can win it in Missouri, we can take it across the country.
Yeah, the radical nature of those who are pro-abortion and the inconsistencies of their argument. One of these cliched bumper sticker arguments that they use, and one of them is, this should be a decision between a woman and her doctor. Well, until the doctor says, no, I'm not going to perform this abortion, well, then all of a sudden they say, no, you have to, the government wants to. So it's not really between a woman and her doctor, is it?
No, it isn't.
And not that I find that to be a valid argument anyhow, but even the invalid arguments they make, they contradict themselves.
Yeah. And I think too, I just think to remind people, Sunday we talked about the dignity of life and the value of life and where does that come from? And I think as Christians, that's as a pastor, and I realize that not everybody who's listening today is a Christian in the sense of accepting what the Bible teaches, but the Bible is very much a foundational part of our society. And aside from that, just in the church, people need to reclaim and recapture the sense that we're made in the image of God. And this is what gives every person value. This is what gives everybody worth and dignity. And if we lose sight of that, then we've lost sight of everything.
Well, I think at the same time, people that are pro-life, but they feel apprehensive about, quote, pushing their beliefs on someone else. And I think oftentimes they see it, well, one, in a political context, but also I think it helps to look at those people who are pro-abortion and see them as victims as well, because they have been misled.
Yeah.
And this is not just an opportunity in order to save the lives of those who are the most innocent and unprotected amongst us, but at the same time, help someone who's been misled see the truth. And I think that we oftentimes forget the benefit of that. We're helping them as well. It's not about beating them, really. It's not about proving them wrong or making them think that, or winning even, as much as helping them realize, because they're just in the dark on it.
Well, and I don't think for a Christian, I would suggest to Christians, listen, I'm not asking you to win an argument. I'm asking you to just explain the truth on the amendment.
Right.
Because honestly, if you'd never switch them in terms of their view of abortion, there's simply the matter of good government that is an issue. And I think second, for Christians and for churches and for pastors, Martin Luther King Jr. said this: the church is not the master of government. It's not the servant of government. It is the conscience of government. And I really think the church has to reclaim that responsibility, not only of government, but of society, that there is a place for a church in any community to be the conscience of that community and the government and that society.
Well, you're clearly a radical. We're talking with Pastor John Lindell. I want to take a break, and then we'll just have a few minutes, and I'd like for you to address, though, the theme of it I think you have, but specifically, and maybe for those who are just tuning in, whether it is the leader of a church or someone who goes to a church and these issues aren't being addressed, and they well, what do they do if they want to approach their leadership?
Okay.
The best way that you would recommend doing that with Pastor John Lindell, moments away, more on Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pastor John Lindell in studio with us. As we've been talking, trying to figure out what it is that perhaps the news leader can take out of context to demonize you in the church and me without citing exactly who I am or where to find me. They have this knack of anytime they write an article that references me, they either don't tell people a local host, or once they even gave us the wrong call letters completely. Not that they are necessarily focused on accuracy, but nonetheless, it does seem as if, for whatever reason, they just really like to write stories about you and things you say. So we'll see what comes of this. The Amendment 3 is an important one, and I worry. I've worried for some time. A year ago, I heard someone who was a leader within the Republican Party talk about, what happened in Iowa won't, or Ohio won't happen here. We're so pro-life. And I remember thinking, man, you do not understand what's going on. And I see tons of no on Amendment 3 signs out. And I fear people will think that means, I see all of these anti-Amendment 3 signs. I don't see any pro, or I do, but they're very rare. That is somehow going to be an indicator of the way things go. I don't think that is a good indicator of it. I think it can lull people into a false sense of security. But when it comes to, and the reason for those that are tuning in, that Pastor Lindell is here is to talk about the faith leaders, and increasingly there has been a call amongst people warning, if the churches do not start speaking up on some of this stuff, we could be in very big trouble. What would you say to maybe people who attend a church and these issues aren't being addressed and they don't know what to do? How do I approach my church leadership?
Well, I think first of all, I think in when you're going to anybody, it's important to understand where they're coming from and what the concerns are that they face. And so when you're leading a congregation and you've come out of COVID in an environment that at times has made people very hostile. I mean, that whole vaccination deal, do you not? And if you straddled the fence, you got shot at from both sides. And so there was all of that. And I think what's happened is you have a church attendance that has decreased dramatically, honestly, live in-person attendance. And so what's happened is, I think leaders are in a place where they're saying, man, I don't want to create controversy that's going to cost attendance or going to ding me online. And so that is a very real concern for people. I think that's part of it. But to be able to address that and say, listen, I know you have these concerns, because sometimes it helps if you feel like you've been heard before it helps you to hear what people are going to say. The second thing, I think, is to give people a menu of options to say, listen, number one, I will support you. I think sometimes people feel like, well, yeah, I'll go out there and then I'm going to be looking around. Nobody's going to have my back. And so to say, listen, I'll have your back, but I think this is important and I think we can help people, and to suggest a variety of ways. Some people are going to feel comfortable, as we did Sunday, giving an impassioned message that clearly lays things out. Other people are not going to feel that there is as willing to do that for a variety of reasons. But even what's been produced, there's a flyer that people can give that gives the highlights, and to say, can we at least talk about this? Can we get an announcement? Would you let me get up and do the announcement and pass these out to the people as they leave? I think that's another way to get the word out and to indirectly have the support of the church, because they're making time for that in their service to do that. I think those are some ways to give options where it's not just one thing and the pastor does it all, but how can we help, and where would you let us participate?
What do you say to church leaders who worry about government coming after them, tax exempt status, saying, oh, well, you are preaching politics, we're going to take away your tax exemptions?
Well, I know, I mean, when you start endorsing candidates and you start doing that, then you're skating on thin ice. And so I think you've got to be very careful how you handle that. But on an issue like this, it has the moral issues and is rooted, you can very quickly demonstrate, hey, listen, this is a moral issue and we will be the conscience. And I would say this, come and sue us. I'm just going to tell you, listen, the church has an obligation to be the conscience in any society, and I will do that no matter what. And I don't wish that, but I also am not going to back down from somebody trying to threaten us that we can't do it. But not everybody, again, is there. I'm a little bit of a, I'm a little bit in that genre of, listen, there's a right that's right when nobody's right. And I'm going to stand up for what's right. but they don't need to worry about it on this issue. That's really the answer.
Pastor John Lindell, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here this morning. And then, like I said,
you might get comments, so but you're used to that.
Yeah,
that's the thing I like about you.
Nothing unusual, and I don't know if it's a character flaw, but generally I don't care, so that makes it a lot easier.
Well, thank you for letting us be on the program, and
absolutely.
thank you for what you do. We really appreciate your voice in the community.
It's good to have you here, sir. Appreciate it. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 81. And on Friday, sunny with a high near 85.
Local for Less coming up. That will be this Friday, 10 a.m. Springfield Little Theater Murder on the Orient Express. You get a $50 gift certificate for $25 and use that certificate towards buying your tickets at the Historic Landers Theater, October 18th through the 27th. Listen, we will, upon occasion, continue to talk about this Amendment 3 issue. I'll say one last thing about it for today, and it's just an observation. We talk about why is it these things aren't more often talked about, particularly in houses of faith. And I don't know this, but there's part of me that wonders if the reason the issue of abortion is not talked about that often from the pulpit, particularly when it's relevant, I mean, this is something that we're going to be voting on in the state of Missouri, is because you have a faith leader who recognizes that in all likelihood, someone in the congregation at that moment has had an abortion or knows someone who does, and they don't want them to feel guilty about it. particularly given we're talking about killing your own son or daughter. That's a pretty harsh thing. And there is a recognition, particularly when you know all of the congregants personally to some degree, and you recognize that oftentimes people make wrong decisions and they think it's the right thing to do at the time, or maybe they even know it's not the right thing to do at the time, but they're scared, they do it anyway, and so you know that they're a good person, and you don't want to hurt that person. You don't want to be talking about the truth and have that person that you care about sitting there feeling, knowing, who, even if you don't know that they had one, but probably someone had, or more than one person. And so there's this instinct to maybe not talk about these things because of that impact. Well, one, if you're not going to talk about something that is of a sinful nature because someone in the congregation may feel guilty about it, then I guess that would leave out virtually all sins. But secondly, I think that a lot of mothers who have aborted their children, they feel almost oftentimes as if they don't have a right to say anything because they have had an abortion, or they feel guilty talking about it. And to me, that's like saying a person who was once upon a time addicted to drugs and then overcame it should never talk about drug addiction. Frankly, they are a fantastic voice for drug addiction because they've been through it. That they have credibility when it comes to that issue. It's easy for someone who has never had an addiction to talk about addictions and how it is to deal with people who have addictions. And, well, why don't they just do this? Or it's that. That's easy to, and it may, the intellectual approach may even be correct, but it sure is a lot easier if you've never been in that position. It's easy to confidently talk about being pro-life if you've never had an abortion. For those who have actually been there, and I don't know exactly, I suppose, how to go about it, but I think that there is a cone of silence that gets created about an issue which benefits the pro-abortion people, because people who are pro-life, who have had abortions, don't want to talk about it, so they keep their mouths shut. People who are pro-life, particularly faith leaders, who recognize that there are probably people who have had abortions in congregations, so they don't want to talk about it. And it's just this thing that isn't talked about because we recognize that it is a bad thing. But as Christians, we should also recognize that we all do bad things. And if we don't talk about the things and recognize that we can be forgiven, that it isn't something that we can never get rid of off of our soul, because if you're a Christian, you recognize and understand the concept of forgiveness. And while having an abortion obviously isn't something to be proud of, but it isn't something that I think should force people into being quiet on the issue. And there is such a powerful power, which is very redundant, but there's a power behind a voice that belongs to a person who has been there and has succumbed to the lure of the benefits of having an abortion, and recognize afterwards why it was wrong, and then telling others about that, and not keeping quiet because of shame. It was sort of perhaps a little unfocused, random thought on the particular issue, but just thinking about the different reasons that leaders of churches do and don't talk about certain things, and abortion being one of them, and perhaps that's one of those reasons. It's just, well, don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable who may have been in that position and so forth. And I think we need to get past that. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Bradford Light, tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate a reliable, easy drinking experience. Golden Elixir, tribute to the industrious spirit that defines the heartland. Bradford Light, crafted with precision and care, offering a crisp, refreshing taste that satisfies without overwhelming. It's a great go-to beer. And it is from Kansas Territory Brewing, making its way into the Springfield market. They also have Pineapple Life Coach. You may see those popping up in shelves in the area. You can learn more about them at KansasTerritoryBrewingCo.com. Someone had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Can you get that flyer from, or the one that was referenced by Pastor John Lindell? And what organization did he say that was from? Do you remember?
Oh, shoot, no.
Yeah.
I'll get it up.
Yeah, we'll find it. And I've seen versions of what he was talking about in which it specifically lays out the aspects of the Amendment 3 that are extreme. Now, again, to me, all abortion's extreme. Relatively speaking, however, given the way that it gets presented, the average American who is not as black and white on the issue as I am, their version, the non-extreme is 4, 6 weeks, 7. That's okay, but 9 months, that's extreme. And so what these flyers do is they highlight those extreme aspects of it, and including the protection of those who may botch abortions and not just kill the child, but kill the mother as well. This protects them. Why on earth the left is... the only reason I can figure that they want to give protection to those who may essentially run chop shops for abortions and end up killing mothers, and whether it's manslaughter or otherwise, the only reason that I could think they would want to protect them is to encourage as many people to carry out abortions as possible. There may be some that kind of know how to do it and have done a few, but they're worried that they may botch it and be held accountable for it, perhaps go to jail, that this will take away any of those fears so that they can have as many people performing abortions in Missouri as possible. It's the only logical reason that I can think of that they would have those components in there, but they are in there. And they do lie and claim that they're not. But this... I think it's still, for some people, difficult to comprehend that they would just flat out lie about that. Well, would they really lie about it? Listen, their entire argument is built upon the premise of allowing mothers to kill their own daughters and their own sons. I don't think lying is beneath them. If you're gonna rank, although all sins are equal in the eyes of God, but if you're gonna rank them just from a humanitarian standpoint, lying is probably a few clicks below killing your own children. That's just my perception, though. Some people are perfectly for it. Some people beat their kids. Some people, it's a news report recently of a guy, I forget if he's low, beat a 6-month-old, beat him to death. So we live in a society in which there are people that's their go-to. I want to go back to, we were talking about Kamala Harris and the fact that it's as if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris this week have decided to tag team torpedo her marketing for her campaign. She has tried to present herself as being completely separate from Joe Biden and that she is the choice of change. That is the marketing strategy, the choice of change. Joe Biden goes out there and says, no, every single thing I've ever done, she was right there with me. She is me. She and I are the same. So in an effort to help her, The View, Stephen Colbert, these outlets, get her on the show. They're like, okay, so tell us how you're going to be different. Tell us what you would do different than Joe Biden. And her answer is, well, nothing. I wouldn't do anything different than what he's done. I'm perfectly happy with everything. So the two are tag teaming to sabotage the marketing of their campaign. Now, I think for different reasons. I think Joe Biden wants to send a message that forcing him out so that the donors could buy the nomination for Kamala Harris was a mistake. I think that's what his goal is. I think Kamala's just an idiot. I really do, increasingly. I think she's just a moron. And so she's out there just, no, I'll just do everything that Joe Biden did. I'm right. I wouldn't do Afghanistan different. Wouldn't do the border different. Would not do the economic policies that led to the spike in inflation. I wouldn't do that differently. I wouldn't do the allowance of a Chinese spy balloon to fly over the country differently. I would have let that happen. I mean, you think of the things that she says that she would embrace. Funding of Iran so that they could turn around and fund the single largest death attack on the Jewish people since Hitler. She wouldn't do that differently. It's a pretty remarkable statement. Not just once, but twice. Colbert's show. The View. She went on Howard Stern. Howard Stern asked her if she, for her safety, if Trump got elected president, would leave the country. If the guy who's already been shot once and a close second attempt by someone who uses the talking points of Kamala Harris, not to mention the third individual who came to this country after visiting Iran with a plot to assassinate Trump. And they still live in this total world of delusion in which they're asking her if she's going to leave because of fear. Which of these two people are getting shot by the other's supporters? Jiminy Christmas, these people. Then Howard Stern, I do not know what happened to this human being. This guy who once upon a time built his entire empire off of mocking the lapdogs of power, is one of the single most grotesque lapdogs of power today. This is part of his interview with Kamala Harris yesterday.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like, when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country. Even when I watched them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of. There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
I agree with
I know that there's a lot of accusations back and forth about, oh, you act like a cult follower. No, you act like a cult follower. When you are open about the fact that you don't even want her to be made fun of, this is the attitude of a North Korean when it comes to Kim Jong-un. that's a supporter anyhow. You don't even want her to be made fun of? And the detachment from reality, and this is what happens when you isolate yourself from the world, as he's done. And I'm not just talking, he went nuts with the COVID thing. He just really isolated himself, almost like a Howard Hughes style breakdown. I'm not talking about just that, but he's done what so many liberals in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry have done, and people on the left do. They isolate themselves ideologically from the rest of the world so that there's only one right approach, one right answer. It's theirs, and everything else they don't understand it, they don't get it, because they isolate themselves from it. So their world becomes the total reality. And he has himself convinced that the entire, freedom, democracy, everything is at stake. Now, as if that isn't delusional enough in terms of believing that Donald Trump, who was president for 4 years, who had the media constantly writing, you know what happens in a country with a dictatorship when people in the media write bad stories about them, and God forbid one with fake news in it? They get thrown in jail. They get executed. None of that happened under Donald Trump. Do you know what happens in a dictatorship to people who try to overthrow a dictatorship? They get executed. Did any of the people who conspired to try to overthrow the presidency of Donald Trump get thrown in jail or executed? No. But when you isolate yourself to the point that you go crazy, as Howard Stern has done here, you believe these things. To amplify the insanity, however, is the fact that he thinks Kamala Harris is the answer to saving us. Of all the people, it's almost as if he was insistent on proving just how insane he is. It wasn't enough to claim that Donald Trump is a dictator, but that Kamala Harris is the one person who is most suited, rather, to save us from it all. Regarding abortion, we don't want to forget Democratic National Convention. They were giving away free abortions. What a sick bunch. Now, they weren't just doing that. They were offering free hot dogs to women who would get an abortion. Is literally what was happening. They were paying women a free hot dog to kill their own child, and they managed to successfully do so. An Afghan refugee that was allowed into the country under the Biden administration has been arrested for plotting a massive terrorist attack on Election Day. Another wise decision from this administration. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.